Hey there, it's me again, Michelle, and welcome back to the Canadian History Channel. Today's episode is about the Spanish influenza, the epidemic of 1918 that killed approximately 50,000 people in Canada. Historically, for Canada and the world, the most damaging pandemic of influenza was an H1N1 virus that appeared during the First World War. Despite its unknown geographic origins, it is commonly called the Spanish flu. In 1918 to 1919, this flu killed between 20 and 100 million people worldwide, including some 50,000 Canadians. Now, why was the 1918 pandemic commonly called the Spanish flu? Well, the name Spanish flu emerged as a result of media censorship by the military in Allied countries during the First World War. These countries suppressed public reports of the viral infection and the death of soldiers. However, in Spain, which was neutral during the war, the media was able to widely report the high incidence of death from the illness. The virus then became associated with Spain as a result. The origins of the pandemic, however, are debated. 4 locations are often considered the source of the initial outbreak: England, France, China, or the United States, but no real proof has ever been discovered to pin it down. So how did the 1918 flu differ from the regular flu? Well, unlike most strains of influenza, which are dangerous for those with reduced immunity, people like the elderly, the very young, and those with pre-existing conditions, the 1918 flu tended to kill the young and healthy. Pneumonia contracted by a patient weakened by influenza rather than influenza itself was the major cause of death. A long-term consequence for some victims was the development of a Parkinsonian syndrome, including a clearly evident tremor. Now, how did the flu spread to Canada? Well, the 1918 flu epidemic arrived in Canada with returning troops and made its way into even the remotest of communities. Some entire villages were wiped out by the disease. Labrador, Quebec, and First Nations reserves were particularly hit hard. Some areas even successfully tried quarantine. Soon, though, all medical facilities and personnel were overtaxed, and volunteers organized infirmaries in schools and hotels. So what was the impact of the 1918 flu pandemic in Canada? Well, the pandemic brought not only death, but social and economic disruption as well. Children were left parentless, and many families found themselves without their chief wage earner. Armies on both sides of the First World War were temporarily debilitated. Businesses lost profits because of lack of demand for their products or because they were unable, as a result of the reduced workforce, to meet the demand. Municipal governments, in an attempt to halt the spread of the disease, closed all except necessary services. Provinces enacted laws regarding quarantine and enforced the wearing of masks in public. The establishment of the Federal Department of Health in 1919 was a direct result of the Canadian epidemic. The influenza strain, although decreasingly virulent, remained active in Canada until the mid-1920s. It has since been identified as an H1N1 virus. And just so I don't scare anyone, the H1N1 virus associated with the Spanish influenza is not the same as that of the H1N1 coronavirus of COVID-19. Firstly, the patient populations are different. While the 1918 influenza killed a disproportionate number of 25 to 40-year-olds, COVID-19 mostly affects those over the age of 65. Especially those also with comorbidities or simultaneous presence of 2 or more diseases. Secondly, the disease killed via different mechanisms. While those with the 1918 influenza died of secondary bacterial pneumonia, while those with COVID-19 died from an overactive immune response that resulted in multiple organ failure. So don't worry about the Spanish flu. And H1N1 has a lot of variants to keep us on our toes for many years to come. Well, that's it for this scary episode. Please stay tuned for the next episode, the internment of Japanese Canadians, where the federal government forced about 21,000 Japanese Canadians to leave their homes and lose everything. Now remember, at any time, feel free to leave comments or questions below, and I'll do my best to respond to them all. And please, be a true Canadian and be polite. And if you like this content, give this video a thumbs up. And click that subscribe button below to see more. And remember, if you wish, hit that bell if you'd like to be notified of any new content. Thanks everyone, and have a great day.